Welcome to Black, Red, and Blue Fancast. I'm AJ, and I'm joined here, as always, with Steve. So this is going to be a packed full episode of many different points that we are dying to make to you guys. But first, we need to do one thing first.
All right, so a very special person wants to give a shout out to John Ryan. Michelle says that John spent his 11th birthday with 200 of his closest friends at the Cincinnati game. And John, happy birthday from your friends here at BRB Fancast. And if you ever want to give a shout out to anyone, please reach out to us on the socials and we'll be sure to do that. John, I'm so glad you spent your 11th birthday all for City, baby.
All for City. And our socials, of course, BRB Fancast, Twitter, Instagram, which we every once in a while will use. And then we're all over Facebook. You don't even have to know what our socials are because you'll see us. The big thing about this game and the midweek game with LAFC, we knew there was going to have to be rotation. Like at some point, players were going to have to rest. And some fans are like, well, we got to play our best players every single game, no matter what. You got to win. But the realistic thing is, as a coach, sometimes you have to make those hard decisions and you have to decide, okay, is it worth pushing the players at 110% all the time? And sometimes you just have to give them breaks. Now, there's different ways to handle it. There was a possibility that we could have maybe rotated 3 players on Wednesday and then 3 players this Saturday. Or we could have done what we did, where we basically had our A team out on Wednesday, and then I think it was 7 players that were rotated on Saturday. And one thing I kind of made an equivalent metaphor with is like, think about baseball, right? You have a 3-game series, you win the first 2 games. Oftentimes the managers will sit a lot of the players and then they just kind of win. And their thought process is, well, we won 2 of the 3 games. If we win with the quote unquote rotated staff, you're like excited. If you lose, you're like, we still took 2 of 3 and we're good. Plus we got the rest of our players for the next series. So Steve, if you were the coach, okay, in your fantasy land, what would you have done?
So I think how Carnell handled it was right. We try to get the best win possible from Wednesday. We put the team out and it just didn't work. So we're going against the team that is in second place for the supporter shield right now. We went against them yesterday. You know you've got to rest some guys. And so if you gave it your all on Wednesday and you still didn't work, well, if you're going to potentially hurt your starters on Saturday, well, then you have to rest. Plus, if I'm hearing nonstop how we gotta put in Claw, we gotta put in Sam, we gotta put in these other guys, we have to sit these other guys. Well, let's go ahead and show the fans this is what we can do. And we not only did that, we ran out a completely different formation as well. We've been doing the 4-2-3-1, and we went out to 4-4-2. And we had Klaus and Sam, and it's like we can see that this formation, these players, as a cohesive group, it just didn't work. And sometimes you've got to show some people, like, here's what you want. Are you sure you want this? And I think it's pretty clear that it didn't. But, I mean, the coach Carnell had to rotate this team. And in fact, even like on the Apple broadcast, they made a big point of, like, every time they talked about the team, this heavily rotated St. Louis side. And it was. And honestly, I think that first half was really close. The first half, like, they looked like it was we had a shot. But, like, you know, you're playing one of the toughest teams in the league, and that's what's going to happen. So
yeah, and just kind of pull this up. I think this is a good moment for this. So Steve is really good about posting our polls on the different Facebook pages. So if you haven't seen them yet, I would highly recommend checking those out. They're only posted on Facebook. So basically we do a rating system 1 through 5, and basically 3 is your average MLS team. A 4 would be the top 40%, 5 would be top 20%, and then 1 and 2, the same thing, but the opposite side of the spectrum. So the fans and the responses that we had, which was over 20, said that City was a 1.8, I think that was probably fair. And our opponent was 4.2. And we went from attacking third 1.6 to mid 2.0 to defense 2.4, goal 4.4, or goalkeeper 4.4. Essentially, fans felt that our attack was really weak, but as we moved defensively, we were much stronger. The coach, we rated 2.5, so slightly less than MLS average. The ref, 3.0. And then, interestingly, for our man of the match for offensive, we had Klaus, and it wasn't overwhelming. It was basically the highest percentage. It was like 30%. Now, Berkey, of course, was like 80% of our votes. And then for our wooden spoon, any guesses? Everybody put, of course, AZ.
Poor kid.
How do you feel about that?
All right. So I get that AZ starting earlier in the year put some sour taste in some people's mouths, but like, guys, he's not the reason we're losing. And in fact, last night he was far from the least effective player on the pitch. I see people. You see his hair running around, and he looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. It looks like he's just constantly. And when he takes a hit and he falls, and he draws a penalty or he draws a flag, people love it. When it doesn't work, people hate it. And a commenter that I follow on Twitter, I showed the stats that AZ is not that far off from what he was last year. So from last year, according to FotMob, he was like a 6.9 overall player. Right now he's a 6.8.
No
so like he is basically the same player. He's basically the same player. Now, when he was with City 2, he was running over those guys. He was like a 7.3. Yeah. Like he was a very effective player. So far, I want to go back. So he scored 3 goals last year. And I want to go back and I want to see when he scored those goals. Because if he didn't score them until like the second half of the year, then we're not giving this kid any time. But he makes good plays. He doesn't make a lot of them. But he's also, I don't think he was asking for all this pressure and all of this hype that the fans put on him. I don't believe Carnell put this hype on him. I don't believe his teammates put this hype on him. I remember last year, a lot of people being like, oh, I love AZ, he's the best. And I was sitting back thinking like, I don't know. I mean, he seems to be kind of wild, but like, I'm like, what do I know? This year, it's kind of more of the same, but like, man, when we were in that draw slump, and it's like every little move this kid makes, it is heightened. And yeah, he had to start because, as we just discussed, it was a heavily rotated side. When he comes on as a sub, he's really effective. People aren't paying attention to that. All they see is that we lost. Yeah. They blame it on him, but yet they're not looking at the fact that Mr. Pompeo was solely responsible for 2 of those goals. 2 of those goals that they scored. Celio played out. Now, Dyer got beat, and Acosta was running down the field, and Celio did what he could to stop him. And he pulled on him, and he caused him to fall, got the PK. Yeah, blame it on Dyer, but Celio did the foul. Celio also was out of position when he got that amazing pass from Acosta, and Kubo scored. Celio's out of position. Yet, because AZ's out there, because AZ has that big hair in the back, everyone's blaming him. Everyone's blaming him because you can see him clear. I kept looking for him, and I was like, who is he? There he is. You can see him bobbing around. He's like Pac-Man out there. And, it's just, I don't know. I think it's time to just pump the brakes, understand that he's not the worst player. He's not the reason that we're failing. So that's, when I saw the win spell, I was like, I like you said, there's no way you didn't know it was coming.
So my thoughts on AZ is that he does seem like he has a lot of energy, right? I think he's great coming off the bench, especially when we have a lead, because of his energy coming out on the field as a sub. I feel like he harasses that build up a lot. I actually love to see him come out in those scenarios, right? Now, the only thing is, though, is I just don't like him as the 10.
It's just, last night we're looking at, there wasn't a lot of output. And, we had mentioned that, like, I saw Kojima, and I was pretty impressed with his defensive strategies. He played Acosta well. And you had made the comment that, like, offensively, he wasn't great. And I can attest to that because both Bloom and Kojima were right in the middle, feeding those balls to Sam and Klaus. And, like, there were bad passes constantly. Like, Sam and Klaus could not get a good play on the ball because their midfielders were doing poor jobs passing. And people were commenting, Klaus is doing low kicks. Well, how is he getting the ball? Like, if he is not getting the ball well, how is he going to put a good shot on?
So,
and Sam had some bad passes, but like,
yeah, I'm sorry, but like you kind of struck a sore point here because this is something that we've been saying this entire freaking season. Yes, about them not being able to get the ball. People are clamoring, "Oh, Klaus sucks, put in Sam." Well, guess what? Sam started with Klaus. How effective were either of those players? Guess what? They weren't. Why can't people see this? Unfortunately, the striker position it's kind of like a corporation where the boss gets all the credit, but it's actually the underlings that are actually doing all the hard work. Like when they do something successful, it's the boss that gets credit. That's the problem, is that in soccer, the strikers are worth nothing unless they get fed the ball. And as we saw last night, is that they weren't getting fed the ball and they were completely ineffective.
Nope.
I think there was one time where Sam almost did like the typical thing where you kind of runs past the defense and almost had a chance, really.
Right.
But
yeah, he ran past the goal is what he did.
Yeah.
Their back line was solid.
They were minimally effective. So the whole thing is trying to say this entire season, and it's driving me crazy, is that our problem isn't Klaus. He is a true DP. He's a good player. It just, we don't have anybody to get him the freaking ball.
Right. So last night, Cincinnati's mids, they scored 3 goals. Their mids were rated by 5, almost at an 8. 8 out of 10. So like you figure they pulled out a 3-4-1-2 with Acosta at the 1. And their midline, they were almost all 8s. Like they all did a great job. Our midline, 5-7, 5-8, 6-4, 6-6. Like, how are we going to score a lot of points if our passers are not doing their job? Which is like, you can point to that. You can look at that squarely and see like, we did not do a good job with the passing. I'm looking at right now. We had Cincinnati owned every stat for passing last night, and it shows. You can see the way that they were able to put on their plays last night. We just didn't have that. So like, yeah, you're not going to win a match if you're not having good passing. We got Berkey going 80 yards because he knows the midfield is not going to get anything done. That's not great again. So I asked on Facebook what we like to talk about, and Larry just commented, learn how to play better defense. And, that comment's okay, but like our back line was actually pretty good, other than the fact that they got beat by Acosta. But like overall, our regularly rotated line is a really good defensive line. I know Marcanic is going to... Isn't it weird how Marcanic got a lot of hate until the fans felt like he got jobbed? Then all of a sudden, we're putting him on our shoulders and we're doing the shield over him. It's just like, buds, pick a lane. Yeah, hate him or love him. But like our back line, when it is on full strength, which we're going to see against Seattle, it's a really solid line. So last night was bad because those guys don't play well. They don't play together. I'm interested to see what that second half was once we got some of our starters back in there. You go ahead. Well, I'm sorry.
I got something for you. Perfect. Good segue. So I looked up the expected threat from MLS Stat, which I love following this Twitter. Our highest expected threat was actually number 19. So that's Indy. So Indy came on in the 60th minute. He was at 0.4. That's actually pretty darn high. That's usually where about Tottenham is. And our next highest, believe this or not, is a lowly 0.2, which was number 12, which is Celio. And then almost everybody else was at 0.1. So if you actually look at this graph from week to week, this is way lower, except for the Vasilev line. this is by far way lower. Like, there was almost no threat from us. In fact, yeah, the next best was number 26, which was about 0.1 for the most part, especially against this team. Not too bad.
Yeah, I think our poll kind of illustrates overall how the team was, because offensively the team was really poor. We scored one. There was one goal scored for St. Louis, and it was an own goal. That was very unfortunate. And our midfield was almost non-existent. Clearly, we've demonstrated that through some of the data that is clear. But our defense was really strong, thanks to the greatest goalie in the league right now. You know, it's just there. But like, even our defense earlier in the game was making some decent plays, but our offense was just non-existent. And I think it goes back to our drum we've been beating all year about, we need that good passing, that good attacking mid. And I think once we get Leuven back in there with more time, I think that will develop. It was interesting to see how Leuven was on our man of the match, and he played 20 minutes. Like, I get it, you dig him. Let's just calm down right now. But I think when we're playing against Seattle, I think we're gonna, hopefully we'll see some of that stronger play. Hopefully we get our entire team back.
I was actually kind of excited watching Leuven. I felt like you noticed that when he came out there, that there was just a quality of play that just you didn't see from anybody else in that midfield. The way he passes, the way he reads the field, it's completely different. Now, the unfortunate thing is this isn't basketball, because basketball, you can have one superstar that just completely leads the team, and you could like literally win championships off their back. Soccer, unfortunately, it takes 11 players. It really does. One superstar isn't going to win you a team. Hence the reason why Miami brought like all these other players on, because as great as Messi
Argentina
is,
with him.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, but yeah, I mean, even Messi can't win every match himself.
I keep going back to Chicago with Shaqiri, and Shaqiri was a very famous French player. He came over as the highest paid player in the MLS, and he's essentially stealing money from Chicago. Like, he's been utterly useless. You also figure on San Jose, they brought in this Pellegrino guy. I'm probably saying his name wrong, but
I think that's a water, isn't it? Pellegrino sparkling fizzy water.
Listen, look at me. I'm Italian. I can get away with it. But like, they brought him on, and they've won like just a handful of games with him on. So like, you got to bring on the right guy, and it's got to be the right fit. You're right. It can't just be one player. It has to fit the thing. So I do think if we were able to get this Cedric Tucker fella from Germany, that Leuven might be able to have a better connection with. He's an attacking mid. He can play forward. Maybe that'll help us out. Like, he's younger. He's like 27, 28. Like, that is something that we can manage. And I think he would fit into our system.
I'm excited about this Marco Royce guy. A lot of people are clamoring for him. Even Flyward Footy talked about him. And yeah, it would be a great get, but I think we need to be realistic. And I think you just kind of started mentioning about this with certain players, is if we put all our eggs in one basket, what happens if they get hurt, or if they just don't fit with the style, or something doesn't work out? Then what? Then we just like literally handcuffed ourselves to a horrible contract. And then what? I mean, there is.
Think about Minnesota. What's their DP that hasn't played at all this year because he's been pissed off, and they've essentially just dumped him, and they're actually better off without him now. They're in second place in the West, and it was all about him not coming back. And like, he threw a big hissy fit. He missed some time last year, and he's non-existent with the team, and they had to just dump him. And now they're better without him. So like, yeah, it's just one player isn't going to do it. Like, yeah, it's just you got to be smart.
That's a good point.
Like we mentioned, I know people like this Reese guy, but like I mentioned earlier, a month ago he was 34 with health issues.
It's fun.
And now he is 22 with like the leg of Adonis. Like, what are we doing here, guys? Is he going to be our savior, or is he going to be someone that we got to protect, like a Fabergé egg? Like, yeah, wait until July when Messi isn't playing and Suarez isn't playing because they have to take these time off. And we'll see where Miami is at that point. Like they've probably given themselves enough padding at this point to rest them for a month or so. But, which is great. It's kind of where we were last year. We came out of the game, we get such a big lead that we could afford to lose like we did towards the second half and still be at the top of the table in the West. So, there's still time. There's even no time for us. So I got kind of off on a tangent there, which is what I do.
Well, that's what you're allowed to do, right? It's our Fancast. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah, our show. It's our show.
Yeah, the thing is a lot of fans are getting frustrated. But the realistic thing is we do have to realize there is a business. We do have to realize there's a business component to some of this too. Steve had mentioned a really good point off air, and that was that we have a stadium that the team has to pay for. There's probably the not the transfer fee, but the buy-in fee that the investment team had to put up to get the team here. I mean, to some extent, like I understand that. And yeah, we're lowest in payroll, but to be honest, even though we're the lowest in payroll of all of MLS, we're actually not that bad of a team. Now you got to remember, we've been
not that bad of a team
without Blom and Leuven. Now, assuming that everybody was healthy, we're not a 10th place team. We might be like a 6th place team, something like that. But that's not too shabby for being the lowest payroll. Lutz is doing something right. He's like the bargain shopper that finds stuff that's just amazing at low cost. He's like a Aldi's shopper. Yes. Like he's not going to the Dearborn.
And that's kind of what he said he wants to do. Like he wants to find those hidden gems and do the best he can. Like once we get, in a couple of years when all this money is kind of able to flow back the way it should, maybe where we can go out and be those big spenders. It's just like, I think it'll happen. I think maybe the team's doing what they can. I'm not going to give excuses to billionaires, but
good call.
There is a financial component. They do have to make money, and I don't know. I think there has to be some perspective on what the team should be.
We're going to play a game real quick, and hopefully you don't already know the answer. So I was listening on a podcast, and they were saying that Berkey was making $1.5 million a year. Klaus and Leuven each were making $1.2 million a year, right? Now, we both probably would agree that Celio is a very valuable player who we just signed extension, about 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Now, knowing those values for Klaus, Leuven, and Berkey, how much to you is Celio worth?
Yeah. Man, so because you're giving me those numbers, I'm thinking it's going to be high, but I'll say,
what would you pay?
For Celio with his ball handling skills and the fact that he's still young and we got him for the next 3 or 4 years. My God, that kid's worth $1 million a year. I just know he is $1.2 million.
Yeah, so we signed him, and it's something like 200, and I think it was $280K a year. That's a bargain, man. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Re-signed with? Wow.
Oh, wow. But that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that's one heck of a deal. This is what Lutz does, he gets great players for very good prices.
Folks.
I know, right?
Wow. That is bananas. I mean, good for him. I mean, good for Lutz. I got to say, when I was his age, if I could have made $280 million to $280,000 a year, I don't know what, I'd buy 8,000 cars. But yeah, so that's an amazing contract for St. Louis. And he's only going to improve. So that's great.
I think with the team option, we have him through 2027. So that means we have him this year,
nice,
2025, 2026, and 2027. Steal.
Yeah.
Holy crap, man.
Big steal. Because, and then by that time, he may, he'll be in the middle of his career. Maybe he'll want to stay even further. So and then start bringing on some more of those foreign players come in. They'll see we're signing them and they can have success. And that's really cool too. So that's a great contract. That's a good find by you, man. That's good. I just checked. Yaro's out until at least June.
Oh,
the hamstring must be Must be a train wreck.
Hamstrings are like the worst injuries in soccer, man.
Seems like it.
This coming week, we have Seattle coming up. How do you feel about this game coming up? Is this an easy game? Should we just assume it's going to be an automatic win?
I'm going to say no with the way that our team is playing. However, and besides, they are directly below us in the table, and they are 2 points behind us. So I do not want to lose this match because then they would leapfrog us. So no, I don't want to take anything for granted because whatever's happening, I'm hoping I can listen to a Seattle podcast this week so I can figure out what they're saying is wrong. Because like Jordan Morris is still on their team. Like they still have a really good team. So like I'm interested to know why this team is still floundering. So I am hoping for a win, clearly. I'm not taking anything for granted. I think we put out our A1 squad because right now our goal differential is -1. Before this past weekend, we were at a goal differential of 3. So like we lost 4 goals at that series. So like last 3 games, we lost 4 goals. So like we need to fix this. So we need some scoring, and we know Berkey, who is what he is. We're gonna get that line. So like I'm not taking it lightly at all. I think our rotation game is in the past. It's great. Let's just sweep it under the rug and let's move on. What do you think?
I agree. You can't take games for granted because that's the thing that makes some of these games almost like a trap game. You see this across sports all the time. I think we need to kind of roll out this our typical 4-2-3-1. I think there has been some bonus about some consistency. I'm anticipating that Leuven's probably going to come in around the 65th minute. I'm assuming. I think we definitely need to bring out the 4-2-3-1 because the next game after that, I think, is Miami. And we're going to have to be on our toes for that one.
In Miami.
Even worse.
Yeah. So, like, what do you think about the lineup we had against Chicago? I think that was a really strong lineup. They played together well. That was kind of what we consider our A1. You have Totland, Parker, Hebert, Markatic, Durkin, Ostrak, Vasilev, Pompeu, and then Klaus at the top. Well, you have Vasilev as that 10. So, like, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering where and how Leuven's going to fit into this because he's essentially going to take Ostrak's place and Durkin's going to be more of your defensive mid. I think Durkin's playing better than Blom right now, so I think Durkin's starting.
Oh, for sure.
The problem is
for sure.
Ostrak's doing great. Like he's really shown that he can make some really good passes and really kind of contribute. The problem is where does he play? I could maybe see Ostrak playing on the right wing, where Alm's playing. I would argue that Ostrak would be better than I don't know how you feel about that.
I agree. I think that's a good problem to have, but I don't think we're going to have that for this week, especially if we're thinking that Leuven's not going to start. He still has to get that game fitness up. So like he'll come right in. Ostrak will save his legs, take him off at some point, and then Leuven will come in. And then once Leuven is at that full game strength, then that's probably Miami. That's probably we'll have to have him out there for Miami. So then that'll be a good problem to have because you're not sitting Durkin. Durkin's amazing at this point. You see, I got my flag behind me for Durkin. So like 100%. I'm all team Durkin, man. I love this cat, and I still say we gave up enough to get him. Stroud is what he is, and this other cat we gave up, I apologize, can't remember his name, but like I think it's fine. But like, yeah, I think if we replace Alm at that point, but like Vasilev's got to start, Pompeu's got to start. I think what we saw last night was our subs, who were starters, overall played okay. I don't think we could have had a ton of high expectations for them since they don't play as a cohesive unit. And I just think they were, okay. I think if we would have started them against like Chicago, we still probably would have won that game. But like we were finding our mojo back in that game, and that was a good match. But like, I don't think they overall disappointed us to the fact that we're like, oh God, we got to start this guy. But like, I like this lineup, and I think that's the lineup they're going to run with, is the one we had in Chicago, because that's a kind of a warm up for Miami. Because yeah, Seattle is still a strong team. Right now they're down, and if we can keep them down like we kept Chicago down, then that'll help us out in the long run. So like, start the strongest team we can, get Lubin game ready for Miami, because man, I'm betting they're gonna, because Messi didn't play. They did not play last. No, he did play. Did he play? But like, they may not play. If he doesn't play this week, he's definitely playing next week, where we're gonna have to be ready. It's gonna be soupy down there. It's gonna be gross in Miami. They had a rain delay in this game last night in Miami. That's how bad it was, and it's going to get worse. But like, let's go. Hopefully, we'll go down there and make it rain some goals. But all right. So that's what I'm thinking for Seattle. Let's see. I'm thinking 4-1. That's what I'm thinking. I think we're going to score 4 goals. It's out there, but I think we're going to go 4-1. Yeah.
You know what? I will take that optimism and I will latch onto it.
Because I actually, you and I shared our predictions from the City app, and this was the first game that I didn't think we were going to win. I thought we win every single game last year. Up until this point, I thought so too, but I thought it was going to be like 1-2. I didn't think we were going to go 3-1 with us not scoring, but like, I thought that we would not win. But like, I do think we can power up against Seattle. I'm going to look up their goal differential. Actually, I know their goal differential. I saw it. They're also at a -1, and they've been at a -1 for a while. So like, they don't score a lot of goals. We do. We're home. Hopefully we come back pissed off, and we get in there and we just put it on them. Let's put it on them. Let's make Jordan Morris sad, coming to the gateway to hell, and we'll send those fools back. We'll ship them out here with some ravioli and some gooey butter cake and tell them thanks for coming. But, head on back to your rain and your fish. I do think that we are still, I think we keep saying, like, we are excited the fact that we get to talk soccer. Look at all this nonsense behind me. I got all these scarves. You know how many scarves I own, AJ? You know how many scarves I owned before we got a soccer team? Exactly 0 scarves. I own so many damn scarves now. It's ridiculous. And I am all for this. I love this team. I love the fact that we get to talk about this. We're forming friendships over it, and I am so looking forward to. Oh, by the way, before we go, I have the opportunity soon, and then we are going to potentially interview a St. Louis Soccer Hall of Famer. And this gentleman reached out to us. We have his book, and I think we're going to be able to talk to him. So you guys are going to get to experience us interviewing a soccer legend from St. Louis. So look out for that the next about a month or so, and we'll try to get that done. So like, it's a pretty exciting time, and all because of City. That's all. It's all because of City.
Yeah. On that note, I look forward to seeing a 4-1 win. You heard it has a Steve stamp of approval.
The Steve stamp.
Hopefully, we're going to see that nice win there. And
that's right.
We'll catch you guys then. So,
all right.
All for City.
All for City, baby.
There we go.